studio. Good to see you, Marcus. And first up, some news just in from the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve.
Yes, good to see you too, Laura. You're right. Some breaking news coming out of Washington, D.C. this hour. The U.S. Federal Reserve is continuing to withdraw its support of the U.S. economy. For a second consecutive month, the U.S. Central Bank has announced that it's reducing monthly bond purchases. The announcement comes after Ben Bernanke led his last monthly meeting as Federal Reserve Chairman. He will now be handing over the reins to Janet Yellen. She'll become the first woman at the top of the Federal Reserve at the start of February. The Fed says that it's tapering as there are signs that the U.S. economy is strengthening. Since December 2012, the Fed has been buying bonds to the tune of $85 billion to grease the wheels, if you will, of the U.S. economy. Last month, it announced a reduction of $10 billion down to $75 billion. And now then, this month, they are reducing stimulus by another $10 billion by reducing those bond purchases. Now, this has sparked concerns in emerging markets, as the fear is that they will make investors move money from emerging markets back to the United States. And coupled with fears of slowing growth in emerging markets, we've seen emerging market currencies taking a real hit in the past few days or so. There's evidence that the Fed's actions is having an effect, as you can see here, with currencies losing value against the dollar. But the Turkish and the South African central banks, they've now taken emergency action to stop the plunge. Both have come out to raise interest rates. In the case of the South African Central Bank, it was the first hike since 2008 that was announced on Wednesday. It also follows moves by Brazil's and India's central banks to shore up their currencies. Let's take a closer look now at Turkey. The central bank there hiked interest rates after an emergency meeting late Tuesday. It flies in the face of the Turkish government, though, which fears that higher interest rates will lead to slower growth. Delano de Souza has more.
Stunning investors by doubling key interest rates. Turkey's central bank increased its overnight lending rate to 12%, its overnight borrowing rate to 8%, and the crucial one-week repo rate to 10%. The move provided a boost to the lira after record lows against the dollar.
To some degree, I think in the short run there'll be plenty of relief. They do look to have removed a lot of the downward pressure. Markets now know that emerging market currencies are no longer a one-way bet.
Until now, the bank held off increasing rates under pressure from Turkey's government, eager not to stall growth. Turkey's prime minister issued a warning to the bank, saying they would be responsible for any slowdown in economic growth. While the bank's decision sent the dollar weakening against the lira, at home, ordinary citizens weren't convinced.
There is a struggle among the institutions, and prices are going up. When you look at ordinary people, their lives are miserable.
The government says they can't intervene, but that's harmful. I think it will have negative consequences on the government.
Analysts say the central bank's latest actions have helped restore its international credibility. It will have to wait longer to see whether its gamble pays off at home as well.
OK, we're seeing a lot of action for stock markets this Wednesday, with the Federal Reserve announcing that it's tapering its stimulus measures, and also with those fears about emerging market currencies. This hour, as you can see right here, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is taking a hit, down 1%. Similar picture there for the Nasdaq, and the S&P 500 also down around about 0.9%. In Europe earlier, the FTSE and the other main markets fell to a 6-week low, with indices losing steam because of fears of what will happen when the Fed tapers its stimulus, and also what will happen with emerging markets. Similar story as over in the United States. Now, consumers in Germany, they're feeling more and more upbeat about the future. Research firm GfK says its reading of consumer confidence there has hit a 6-year high. It's another sign that the German economy has started the year on a strong footing. A reading earlier this week put business sentiment near a 3-year high. It comes as jobless levels are stable and interest rates, they are low. In a speech to the Bundestag, the parliament in Berlin earlier, Chancellor Angela Merkel, she hailed Germany's strong economy. But she also said that Germany's fortunes are tightly linked to those of the Eurozone, and that the Eurozone debt crisis is far from over. She called for tighter coordination of economic policies among the 18 countries that use the single currency. Let's listen in.
I must point out that even though the European debt crisis isn't dominating our daily headlines, we must face the fact that it's only under control. It's far from being resolved in an efficient, sustainable way.
Dauerhaft und nachhaltig überwunden ist sie damit noch nicht.
Angela Merkel there delivering her State of the Nation address to the Bundestag, sitting down for the first time due to the fact that she's suffering from a little bit of a fracture in her hip. More about that later on, I suppose, with Laura. Let's just say that. Now, Fiat is changing name after finalising its takeover of Chrysler. The new group will be known as Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, and its shares will be listed in New York and Milan. The legal headquarters of the group will be in the Netherlands, and it will be a British tax resident. In Italy, there are concerns that the company is becoming less Italian, but Fiat says that the Italian headcount will stay the same. Speaking in Brussels earlier, Italy's Prime Minister also played down the significance.
These days, Fiat Chrysler has become a global player, and being a global player makes the question of the legal headquarters absolutely secondary. What counts are jobs and the number of cars sold, competitiveness and the fact that Fiat is globally present as a global player.
La competitività e la globalità della presenza di questo nuovo grande soggetto.
OK, that was Enrico Letta speaking there in Brussels earlier. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Laura, and she can talk a little bit more about Angela Merkel's hip. What do you make of that?
Well, what a trooper, anyway, turning up to make a big speech like that on crutches.
Indeed.
You can't keep Angela Merkel down, can you? We will be talking more about her economic policies and her lashing out at US intelligence agencies later on. I haven't got so much on her hip, though. Thank you, Marcus. We'll see you in an hour. Now, let's get some sports news for you. Dan Levy's here with us. Hi there, Dan.